What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of The Idol, the new drama series on HBO starring Lilly-Rose Depp and The Weeknd. The Idol from Sam Levinson, the creator of Euphoria. The Idol has been quite controversial and polarizing ever since, really, I think the production changes came to light. Notably, Amy Simons, the director, had shot around 80% of this series before Sam Levinson ended up coming in and writing and directing everything basically from scratch and reshooting this series. Sam Levinson initially was involved as a producer on this show, wanting to not be super involved because there's a lot going on with Euphoria for him as a producer there. And yet, it seems like The Weeknd, this is his ostensible acting debut, Uncut Gems cameo aside, The Weeknd kind of pushed this creative change, and Levinson was brought in to have more of a hand with the creation of this series. And that was a quite controversial move because reportedly this was to kind of alter the thematic viewpoint of the series, and The Weeknd's critique was that there was too much of a female view with how the idol is being portrayed. And then, of course, we got this Rolling Stone expose with interviews from people on the crew on the set of this series from a few months ago. This piece came out where the show was described as kind of like a transitioning from a music industry satire under Simons to like a male rape fantasy, and was told as being incredibly exploitative and graphic in its nudity, but also just a kind of overt portrayal of the male gaze and things like that. Of course, this series has since premiered at Cannes very recently. 2 episodes were shown to critics, and it got a very negative reception. So there's a lot of controversy and noise around The Idol. But to me, I was certainly invested in the series from the get-go, just because I think Sam Levinson, for both good and bad, deserves, I think, a lot of attention because he's a line pusher. He's a willing to take risks, and he's also a very polarizing figure for what he puts into his movies. I totally understand that, and I think the fact that he is the one putting a show like this forward will certainly turn more people off than someone else had made this, which is a totally acceptable viewpoint given Levinson's history to this point with Euphoria and Malcolm and Marie and Assassination Nation. Like, that's the kind of storyteller he is, and I think I still, I think, quite interested in. I think the premiere episode was quite intriguing, and I'm curious to see like what this show ends up being. I think it's being billed, it's being sold as like this really sleazy and sexy and genre pushing hard R show, and we'll see if it ends up actually being as edgy as it's being propositioned as. Because I think, through one episode, it's certainly risque, and there's plenty of nudity already in the first episode, but we'll see if it ends up being as, across the line as people are saying it is. I haven't seen that yet. But I think, kind of the appeal, of course, which is Lilly-Rose Depp's character, Jocelyn, this pop star, this very famous artist, this singer, her, having this career with, all this, her team really pushing her career forward as she is kind of getting over a troubling time in her life with the passing of her mother, while everyone else, these not really hangers on, but all the people invested in her success really want to push Jocelyn's career forward. Having that like music industry piece is quite compelling to me, and it seems like the show isn't necessarily going to go down that path because it's more interested in Jocelyn meeting this Svengali mysterious figure, Tembros, played by The Weeknd, who seem to have a mutual attraction to each other, and they're going to increasingly get into the orbit of one another. And I think we're going to actually be seeing her team playing off that more so than like the classic like industry push forward. So I think I'm curious like what like the music satire, like what to what level that still ends up being in the show versus how much of that was like killed on the cutting room floor when the show was reshot. We don't really know, but And I think like right off the bat, it starts off an awesome way. You have Jocelyn on this photo shoot, and her team is like quickly established, and I think that the cast is just so awesome, right? You have Jane Addams as this music label executive, killing it. Hank Azaria as this like manager fixer type. Troye Sivan as as Jocelyn's creative director. Rachel Sennett as Jocelyn's friend and sister. Divine Joy Randolph as another person on the team. Eli Roth as I think it was a Ticketmaster or Live Nation exec. Uh, Dan Levy as like PR or something. Like, love all that. Like, all those pieces. Love all the conversations they're having in and around Jocelyn. I think very quickly you get something that's gonna get attention, gonna get think pieces. Definitely probably turns off plenty of people, which is this uh, scene put up where like the intimacy coordinator on set has issues with how the photo shoot's going, and Jocelyn isn't really feeling how he's going, and her team basically locks this guy in the bathroom so they can proceed with doing these nude shoots. And you know, I think it presents the question of like female body autonomy versus the incredible importance that intimacy coordinators provide in modern sets, and how much safer they make shoots today than in the times before they existed. Seeing like an obvious like lambasting of an intimacy coordinator, that is an edgy like line pushing thing, and that'll certainly turn some people off. So like I think that's like a incredibly obvious one. You know, from there, I think seeing my girl Jenny Kim from Blackpink and her acting debut as being one of the dancers, and like that whole dancing scene again, it's like super provocative, super showing of skin, you know. But like that was kind of cool. Watching them go to the club though, after a night out, after this photo shoot day, that's where we meet the Weeknd. And on top of that, like there's a whole nother thing, right? You have this nude leak of Jocelyn, like a very sexually explicit nude of her face with a bodily fluid involved, and like watching her team kind of juggle that and like how they're going to message before they even tell Jocelyn what's happening. Again, like I really like all that stuff with the team. I want to see more of those characters and that whole operation interacting, and I think Lilly-Rose Depp, who she's been in a bunch of stuff at this point, but never in like really like starring roles. This is like her first big role. I think she's doing a pretty good job kind of conveying this I don't want to say troubled artist, but like an artist who has like a lot to manage, and like whether it's her fame and her mental state and just a lot of pressure and stuff. I think she's doing a pretty good job through one episode. I'm really curious to see how this performance progresses. Um, and then yeah, so they go to the club, and that's where of course we encounter the Weeknd's character, and the like attraction that Jocelyn and Tenbros have. It's like pretty quick. It's like pretty abrupt. You kind of just have to go with it. But like before we know it, they're just kind of feeling it, and they're making out, and then they're going to the staircase to try and have sex, which doesn't end up happening. But like you kind of have to just, I think, go with that. But I think it's the club like looks really cool. It's like this like like small club, and like I love the music choice. The first music cue you hear, which is Madonna's "Like a Prayer," just because like I think there's a really obvious like through line between like what that song represented in Madonna's career, coming out at the end of the 80s and being this like big like creative step forward for Madonna in the eyes of critics, and you juxtapose that with what we see later with Jocelyn and the Weeknd's character, where they're talking about her song, and Jocelyn's like openly admitting that she thinks her pop song that her team wants her to put out, she thinks it's a bit too superficial from a lyrical perspective. And the Weeknd has some ideas about how to punch up her performance, let's say. And I don't know, it's just kind of a fun through line to have like a really like artistic song like Madonna's "Like Your Prayer" and juxtapose that with someone like Jocelyn, who could be seen in a certain sense as a young Madonna when Madonna was like a pop star first. Interesting idea. Yeah, and then towards the end, we see I think some of the headline grabbing stuff, right? You have a shot, I think a pretty extended sequence of Jocelyn choking herself while fingering herself. Like it's a pretty like long, like gratuitous shot. And like that's just like it just feels like a Sam Levinson thing to like linger on something like that. That's just what he does, you know. I love the Vanity Fair brief moments earlier in the episode. I thought the interview, I thought that went pretty cool. With the Weekend coming over though, and he's like so creepy looking with his like black cape steeped in darkness, so mysterious. And the things they do at the very end were like the Weekend basically covers Jocelyn's face in a robe, and like she starts to like have trouble breathing, and then he cuts a mouth hole with his knife. Like it's like hard to watch some of it. Like I don't know how sexy I necessarily think it feels, and we'll see because like I know there's like a lot of like graphic sex stuff to come. And I guess we'll just see like does it go down the path some people say? Is it going to be like torture porny? Is it going to be a rape fantasy? I hope I don't want to see that necessarily, but if it's like really like sexy stuff, I mean I'm sure that'll be cool. But I think a lot of that stuff is really wait and see for me. And like I said in the beginning, I'm just curious to see like what level of edge this show actually is putting forward. Because I think in some of the negative reviews, it's not so much that like it's the graphic nature or the thematic point of view that's turning people off, but some people think it's just actually a bit flat and it's like over promise under deliver type thing. So I'm intrigued, but I definitely want to see more to really understand what this show is actually interested in, because it's clear that there's a few different lanes you can go down with this show, and we think we know which lane it will end up going down, but I think we have to see that still. So we'll see. I think at the very least, it's something that people will be talking about. It did nearly 1 million viewers just on Sunday night, so that's a great sign that it'll be successful, probably averaging several million each week as it improves. So another solid hit for HBO, it sounds like, and we know this will have attention. Shout out to Rat Tail, the Weekend sporting in this, looking wild. Yeah, the Idol. I think from a meta standpoint, I'm incredibly intrigued by the Weeknd's desire to make something like this, just because as the Weeknd has for years now, as people know, become the biggest pop star, you know, in the world, give or take Taylor Swift and Bad Bunny. Like he is at the very top, the number one artist on Spotify, basically indefinitely at this point, over 100 million monthly listeners. The Weeknd is full blown pop, and yet the thematic intentions, the character he's playing on the Idol, reminds me so much of the old Weeknd. House of Balloons Weeknd, back when the Weeknd was incredibly explicit and hedonistic and dark. Before he was as famous as he is now. So that's also an interesting juxtaposition of like the Weeknd, almost going back to his like real roots. Who I'm not saying like who he really is, but like what he used to be really interested in making art about. So we'll see. I mean, I think Lilly-Rose Depp, and she certainly compels, and Sam Levinson, I think, kind of demands attention for good and bad. And the Weeknd as an actor, we'll see. I think he's okay to start, but I obviously we need to see more. Like if he just kind of gives a dud of performance, I think it would really detract from this show and just point out that he's not really an actor. We'll see. I'm not sure. But let me know, how'd you feel about The Idol through one episode? Are you intrigued to continue like me? And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.